I want to tell two stories that happened to me that confirmed that people, their bodies may die, but their spirit, their consciousness doesn't. The first one was when my dad died. I was in my 20s. My dad, who I adored, he had a lot of problems, but it didn't stop you from adoring him. He was dying from lung cancer because he'd been a smoker most of his adult life. And I had my husband then, and I had a toddler, about a year and a half, a little over a year and a half old. Found out my dad was going downhill in a hospital, so I thought nothing's going to stop me. I got in the car and I drove 4 hours to spend what turned out to be the last 4 evenings of the life of his physical body. My mother was going during the day, and so I said, I will go during the evening. And I wanted to let him know how much I loved him. I wanted to show that I cared. And I would have a friend be with me because I didn't want to be alone driving at dark. It was when it was dark early. And the sad thing about my dad, he was scared to death of dying. It made it hard. I wish I knew then what I know now. But one of the friends that was there was a nurse, and he knew that. Her name was Liz. And he looked up at Liz and he said, "Am I dying?" And it was more of a plea. I don't want to hear, like he didn't really want to hear the answer. But she said, "Yes, sir, you are." And the look on his face and the way he reacted was horrifying for me, for him. And he did, his physical body did die. So I spent 2 to 3 more days with my mom, but I needed to get home because my then husband was staying home to take care of our toddler and he needed to get back to work. So I drove the 4 hours back. And here's what happened. I go to bed the first night, have a normal night's sleep. I'm lucky that I can. And I wake up in the early part of the morning where it's still kind of dark, twilight starting to peek through, but it was dark, somewhat dark. They call it twilight. And I was in that in-between stage. And I went and looked this up. It's called hypnopompia. We've heard of one called hypnagogia, but this is called hypnopompia. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. That in-between stage, being asleep and waking up. And all of a sudden, I smelled a very strong whiff of cigarette smoke. What? I didn't smoke. My then husband didn't smoke. I've had nobody in the house that smoked. There was nobody outside doing anything that was causing them to smoke. So I woke myself all the way up. Didn't take but a few seconds because I wanted to smell, is somebody in my house smoking? And I smelled through my nose, smelled nothing through my nose. Yet I was still smelling cigarette smoke. And then it hit me in shock. I'm smelling it now. In a material world, you would say you're smelling it in your brain, but I'm going to say I was smelling cigarette smoke in my consciousness. And then I got up for the day, had a regular day. Second morning, the exact same thing. I'm in that in-between stage. I smell cigarette smoke. I wake myself up. I don't smell it through my nose. It was in my consciousness. And even in my 20s, I had the wisdom then to know that had to have been my dad telling me he's still here, just in a different realm. So now I want to go to the second story, which also confirms for me that we don't die. Our bodies do, but our spirits, our souls, whatever you want to call it, our conscious doesn't. Decades later, I lost the physical presence of the love of my life. The husband I was referring to was the first husband. He was not the love of my life, but the second one was. We had 25 wonderful years together, except that he had Agent Orange, and it took him from me. And that is the worst grief I've ever been through. For a few weeks, I forgot about some of my own intuition. I forgot about some things I knew, but I had hired a therapist before he passed to help me go through this. And we were in a session. This was 6 weeks after he had gone to the other side. And I'm bawling because I'm so deep in grief. And all of a sudden, she says, and I didn't know this about her. She said to me, "Oh my God, Jane." And I was sitting right here. What you're seeing is what she was seeing in the background. Janie, not Jane, Janie. And she's shocked. She said, I'm watching an orb come around your right side, and she's watching it come in front of you, come around here and go back here. And I went, what? And I'm crying. I stood up. There's a window right there. I wanted to make sure there's nothing out there to explain it. It was cloudy. There was no cars going by. I'm deep in a neighborhood. I sat back down. She said, okay, Janie, it's coming back around here. It's coming in front of you, and it's going back here. And I'm just crying. I said, that has to be Monty, because that's his name. He was so sweet and sensitive. He would have been here if I had been crying. And finally, she says, oh my God, there's another one. That's my kitchen right there. She said, that orb is going in the kitchen. Now, we were a little bit over. She said, it is following your wall right there. She could see the corner where I was seated. She said, it hit the corner. It's turning this way, and now it's out of my view. So what I want to say to you also is during that time, right around that same time, I started strongly feeling his presence. Now, Western medicine, Western psychiatry will say, oh, that's just a hallucination. Sorry, I know the difference between the terror of a hallucination and what I was sensing. It was strong. He was always there. And finally, I started hearing him talking to me in my consciousness. It's now 3 years since he left this realm, went to that realm. We can still talk. So I've done a lot of research. I've done a lot of study. I'm writing a book. And this woman here, Janie, has no doubt that we continue.